got word that Willamette Falls video is here, so if we could wait another 2 or 3 minutes, then we'll have everything linked up and we can go live on YouTube. So thank you for everyone's patience.
Can everybody hear me? Well, everyone would have to answer to get a truthful reply there.
Okay, great.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
My screen is like vibrating.
Yes. Where am I, Karen?
Hold on a second.
It was a rhetorical question, Bob.
I don't know.
No, this is serious business here, William. You have to realize that.
No such thing.
That's really disconcerting.
No such thing.
Yeah.
I like Steve's view. It's like your camera must be down about your waist level there, Steve. Ah, there we go.
We have to sit and listen to.
Looking up your nostril.
Can we mute the?
Next thing, you're gonna tell him he needs a shave.
All right, I'm gonna put everyone on mute real quickly, 1 second.
We'll just start with a laugh. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We were scrambling to get this. I can do Zoom meetings like a pro when I'm just doing a Zoom meeting, but integrating with facilities with no help has definitely tested my knowledge today. So we should have Willamette Falls Media hooked up, and we should be able to go live very soon.
And I chose to have an abortion. Choosing to have an abortion was the hardest decision I ever made. As an 18-year-old, return back to those days before Roe versus Wade. To the days when I was a teenager and
And I don't have mine on. I never know what to turn on.
Can I be scoot that way?
Yep.
Keep walking out and back in.
If all else fails, at least that one's working. But let me try and get it to you guys.
Is that Karen?
That's Karen. I'm laughing because spending my time earlier tonight setting up the Zoom meeting under OCNA, I showed up in here as OCNA,
It would be
even though
nice
my
when we
only
all get back to the same
signed
room.
in was by my name. And I
think
just
that's
figured
lots of
out how to
frustration
rename
too.
myself.
We're all just COVID worried of all this.
I understand. So
Every bit of it, yeah.
there was a broadcast thing that came on. I don't know.
It's not IVGA, is it?
Remember to change it back. It'll be that way for the next person to use it.
Yes,
What happens when
looks
you turn
right.
it off and turn it back on? Doesn't work right.
Anything.
Okay.
Is it
Well,
the monitor or the?
I'll check it out when I go to room school tomorrow.
oddly enough, that wireless is working great.
I got this one up. This one's funky. I can, you know. Oh, F5.
Invalid configuration. It's not an invalid.
This one never works.
Thank you for your patience, everybody.
What we're trying to do now is we're trying to marry the presentations to the video. So like when you watch Willamette Falls video, you see the presentation on the screen as its own, and there's a link, and we're trying to get the link to go.
Better. See how pixelated this one is?
It was more fun when we were chatting.
I'm sure it was. Okay, well, the same feed comes through on camera 4, so I can use that.
Okay.
I was down the other day and talked with Tom Guile. He's at
Okay.
Hollywood. I go down.
Okay.
Just nice to see him.
At least we got a resolution notice.
Okay. 1 second.
talking about me.
And what did
The
she
host
do?
would like you to unmute your microphone. You can press
I
star.
finally had to get a new computer. Because my computer was just going,
You are unmuted.
not working.
No, I
Chair
couldn't hear.
LaSalle, can you hear me now?
And I will still do, I'm working on my computer and all. the-
Chair LaSalle, Bob, can you hear me now?
Because it
Yes, I
takes so
can.
long.
Okay, can I have everyone quiet down real quickly? We have everything ready to go. I can press record in just a moment, but I want to let you know we have 3 people on the public comment agenda. Roger Fowler-Thias is here for the Oregon City Parks Foundation, Carla Law, as well as William Gifford online. So those are the 3 people I know who want to make public comment this evening. If there's anybody else, let me know, but I will pass that off to Chair LaSalle before we start. And I will
This one works,
share our
so I'm
screen
looking here.
to show our agenda.
This is all weird, okay? I'm not seeing what you're doing.
And I will press record in just one moment.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Okay, thank you for everyone's patience. I believe we are ready to begin. Bob, over to you.
Okay, the Citizen Involvement Committee meeting of October 4th, 2021 is now called to order. Dennis, would you please do the attendance?
Okay, October 4th, Barkley Hills, Carla Laws,
Here.
she, is Dee Dee here? Is Dee- I think she's here. In Kenema, that would be Linda Basinger.
Here.
Of course, I'm here. Caulfield, John Keyes.
Here.
Gaffney Lane, Amy.
I'm here. Just wanted to make sure you heard that Linda was here and Dee Dee is not here.
Dee Dee's not here? Okay, I heard Linda, and I just... Okay, thank you, Amy. Hillendale, Sarah? Is that a yes? McLaughlin, Denise, Beasley? Park Place, Steve Van Eversby? Steve? Here. Bob LaSalle? Yes.
Here.
Rivercrest, Karen Morey?
Present.
I think that does it. Did I miss anybody?
I think, some of the responses were kind of broken up. Did you call for Hunter Pico?
I did not,
Glendale?
but I will. Is he present? Is he in place of Sarah Peterson?
No, they're both, Hillendale reps now.
Okay, and he's present, correct?
No, he's
I
not
didn't
here
hear
this
him.
evening.
Oh, okay, so he's not.
Okay, so that should do it, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go right into public comments, reminding that you, during public comments, you're limited to 3 minutes. Go ahead, Roger Fowler, Thias, is it Thias? Thias.
This on.
Push the button.
Yes.
Why don't you speak in really quickly to test?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Roger Fowler-Tice from New York, and I'm representing the Oregon City Parks Foundation. As many of you may know, the Oregon City Parks Foundation, as well as other groups, have been working to eradicate English ivy in some of our parks and our protected tree canopy. However, the English ivy growing freely along many of our streets and roadsides, green spaces, private properties, our efforts, our volunteer efforts may be in trouble. So once the ivy grows vertically, allowed to bloom and go to seed, it will only continue exponentially. With your help, we hope to encourage the City Commission to have Oregon City join with other metro area cities to participate in the No Ivy Day event on Saturday, November 20th. The No Ivy League in Portland already has a great framework available for our city to follow in planning our city's own No Ivy Day. We can only hope to be successful in eradicating or controlling the English ivy in our city through the support and actions of our city, neighborhood leaders, as well as other community leaders. To educate, encourage our city residents participate in ridding this invasive and harmful vine from our city and surrounding areas. That's it. I just wanted to make a quick note. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger. The next person will be William Gifford. William, you are up.
Thanks very much. I'm trying to adjust my view here. I didn't hear from Roger what the date of that Ivy Day was.
20th. November 20th.
Of this month. Next month. Okay. Good. Well, that's a little advance notice. Good evening, CIC. My name is William Gifford. Live in Oregon City, and I guess I had 2 points. One is I was surprised that so many neighborhoods have been contacting me, wanting to find out how to use the Zoom system that I had set up for the neighborhood associations. I'm very pleased at the number of them, but I was a little disappointed that the CIC hasn't provided any education, hasn't provided a whole lot of notice, and there are so many other benefits to using that system that I wish that there was more education about that opportunity. A good number of neighborhoods are using it, and I would certainly like to encourage anyone that has any more questions about it, either contact me or who. I don't know if anyone in the city is taking responsibility for that or not. Part of that, and the second thing that I want to say is part of that is the opportunity to have a consistent email address for each neighborhood association. As you all know, we go through officers periodically, and to keep changing the addresses of the contact persons seems a little frustrating to me. That there can easily be set up, and I've set up some already, email addresses just for the neighborhood. So the neighborhood could send out announcements, the neighborhood could receive queries, the neighborhood could post letters to whomever they needed to, all under the address of their neighborhood association, rather than involving a private individual's email address. That way, when we change officers, it's seamless, and the same address can be used. And if you'd like to know more about that, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. Those are my comments.
Thank you, William. The next person would be Carla Laws. Carla, are you out there?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yes, sorry. Carla Laws, Barclay Hills. I'm coming here as a resident and also neighborhood chair. I don't know if any of you saw what happened since early September with the land use on Holmes Lane. But basically, the land use had, issues like using a traffic safety report from 2017, doing a geological study in September of 2020 during the forest fires with no soil sample on a creek bed. I happen to have a friend who's a geohazard specialist. I happen, know that a traffic safety report from 2017 isn't accurate to now. Basically, in this whole process, our appeal was trying to be dissolved, nulled, because my bylaws were used against us for Barclay Hills Neighborhood Association. How I took my minutes was questioned. And at this point, I'm a little bit frustrated as neighborhood chair that I really can't advocate for my neighborhood association if my own bylaws are going to be used against me or how I do my minutes. So at this point, this is a message to all the neighborhood associations that I want us to be empowered to be able to advocate for our residents in land use. And I don't think the way it's set up right now at the city that we're going to be able to do that. We're not recognized by the state as an entity, so state ethics don't come into play. And I'm hoping that we would look at possibly endorsing long-term, maybe more discussion or doing an endorsement as of soon to have the city attorney represent the elect rather than the city manager, because I don't know if you watched the last city commission meetings and the special meetings. My perception is every time our own city attorney called Barclay Hills on things, because we're not specialists, we're not attorneys, we're just normal people, but did not call anything on the developer. And obviously there's a lot of questions in the documents that were given on ethics and the whole process on knowing late on dates or like a deadline that was 3 days later, but we were informed 3 days before. The developer had information before we did as Barclay Hills. I just wanted to see us have an even playing field. And I'm hoping that we'd entertain looking at that, because at this point, when it comes to land use, we're really kind of useless and advocate. We can make recommendations, but we can't really strengthen our neighborhood in the land use appeal. So I'm wondering if you would consider that. In any case, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Carla. I might say or remind everybody that we are having a Land Use 101 informational meeting on October 14th from 7 to 8:30. So if you'd like to take part in that, let Christina know and we'll be sure to get everybody linked up.
I would like to motion.
That would be helpful.
Sorry, Bob. I'd like to motion that we look at possibly considering that as a recommendation or possibly endorsing that recommendation. And I don't know if anyone, obviously it may take more than one session of 3 minutes of me explaining it. So I don't know if someone would be interested in motioning that at this point, or at least entertaining a motion.
Bob, this is Karen.
Hello.
Carla needs to step back to the quote-unquote dais as a member of this committee. She is not a citizen. She cannot ask for a motion under citizen comments. If she has a motion she wants to make, she needs to be back in her seat.
Karen, she is. Karen, stop. She is back. She was back.
No, she can't make a motion.
She's back on the, behind the dais.
No. Physically, that's fine. She made that motion under citizen comment.
No, I
We
didn't.
have the place under the minutes later.
Carla, I'm not
That
sure.
section was citizen comments.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Now that you're back in your official capacity as a member of the CIC, Carla, would you like to state that again?
Thank you, Bob. I would like to motion that with something we consider to talk about in the future as an agenda item, or that we motion to actually motion that as a recommendation.
Could you clarify?
Specifically, that we look at the city attorney or recommend that the city attorney report to the elect rather than the city manager.
Do I hear a second?
I would second bringing that back as an agenda item to discuss. This is Amy. I don't know that it's ready for,
That was Amy.
Oh, okay. Okay, it's been moved.
What was that?
Further discussion?
Carla, do you mean that he reports to the city commission rather than to the city manager?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Who made the second?
This is Amy. I seconded bringing it back as an agenda item to discuss, and not that we're anywhere ready to make any kind of a recommendation.
Okay, Amy, I can, as the chair, enter any kind of agenda item. So, Amy, would you email me, or Carla, one of you email me, that desire, and I'll put it on the next agenda?
That sounds great. And then, so we could go forward with that. That sounds fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other citizen comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed with the agenda. Next is presentations. The first one is from the Downtown Association update, Liz Hannum.
Excuse me?
Liz, you've changed.
Yes.
I'm going to take off my mask to speak. Good evening. I am Denise McGriff, and I'm here tonight representing the Oregon City Downtown Association. Liz is out on leave and is unable to physically be here with you either online or in person, so I agreed to make the report. So as I said, I'm Denise McGriff, and I represent the City of Oregon City on the Downtown Association Board of Directors. I am also the Vice President, and I wanted to give you a brief update about our activities for this next quarter, so to speak. So I'm going to start down the list. So we have a save the date for Halloween. Trick-or-treating will be, I believe, from 4 to 6 on the 29th of October. And there will be a companion pub crawl the next day on the 30th. I don't know if all that's up on our site yet, but I know our president, Kelly Upkees, is working on that. For those of you who have not seen the wonderful presentation on the city's website, the mural above the restaurant Don Pepe's is in the process of getting refurbished. And of course, we've had some unfortunate rain, which doesn't help when you're out there trying to paint on a scaffold. But there are proposed to be future ones near the Live Edge Salon, which is on Railroad Avenue at 6th, and also at White Rabbit Black Ink, which is at Main Street and 5th. Liz also wanted me to let you know that the new ornaments are on order and they are pre-sale. It will be the 1936 Clackamas County Courthouse. And for those of you who have not purchased your ornaments, let me tell you which ones are still available. So the Oregon City Municipal Elevator, the Arch Bridge, the wagons at the end of the Oregon Trail Center, and the fourth one will be the courthouse. Liz tells me that they are available 3 for $60 or 4 for $85. Normally they're $25 a piece, but you can bundle those and you can purchase those at the kiosk at the elevator or at the Downtown Association office. And while Liz is out on leave, so you need to call first or call me and I'll let you know when somebody's going to be there. The other thing is that the Downtown Association has been talking about starting some informal discussions with regard to the courthouse. Now, I will honestly tell you with my DOCA hat on that we have approached the county and the county is basically saying, well, we don't really want to start talking about it just yet. Let's wait till next year. I think the Downtown Association Board feels a little differently and they would like to begin informal discussions either with the county or without the county, just to kind of talk about what ideas people have or what they're thinking about. I mean, I've heard a number of ideas passed around already about things that it could be. It's obviously going to need a lot of money. Let's just say that our friends at the at 250 Kane Road have done a little what I would call deferred maintenance on their building. and have not really kept it up. So it's going to need some seismic upgrading and things of that sort. But it is eligible for the National Register, which is exciting. It is, like I said, 1936 Art Deco. The other thing that's happening is that we have a new business coming into downtown. It's called the Glow Up, and I believe it's going to be, not that guys can't come, but it's going to be facials and all sorts of taking care of yourself type services. And they will be next door to Don Pepe's. And I believe they're going to be opening up sometime toward the middle of this month. The other exciting thing that's going on, and I'm actually participating in this, is the virtual Oregon Trail Game Run. It is still active for another 6 months. It started in April. And so for those of you that are already on the trail, like myself, we have until next year to complete our 2,000 miles. Now, there are options. You don't have to do the whole 2,000 miles, but if you're like me and you made a mistake when you were registering, you thought you were doing the abbreviated version of 200 miles. Somehow or another, that another zero got on there. So I am doing the entire 2,000 miles for the virtual run. And so what it involves is that you sign up and you have there's a tally sheet and you put in your miles every day. So I'm tracking on my Apple Watch. And I will have to say, I'm a little embarrassed. I'm only 30% of the way on the trail. I have 4 more miles to get to Fort Hall. And so my progress is not swift. But then again, you know, I'm walking. They walked it. But at least I have the benefit of having the appropriate clothing to when it gets into the winter weather and I'm crossing the Rockies. So that's pretty much what's going on with the Downtown Association. We have a new board member. Some of you will recognize her name. So Lori Bell, who now works for Wes, is just become a new board member. And I'm the chair of the nominating committee, so we'll be entertaining some other folks, but we have committees. The other thing that's going to be happening is that it's not too late, and actually it's not early enough, but next year, many of you know, the Arch Bridge will be 100 years old, and the city has already begun some preliminary planning. The Oregon Department of Transportation at our meeting last week has a staff person they've assigned. The city of West Lynn is going to be involved, and I'm sure there'll be some other places for volunteers. But I think it's very exciting that we're going to celebrate the 100th anniversary of that bridge and spotlight Condi B. McCullough, the architect and engineer for the bridge. We also are very fortunate. We have 2 McCullough bridges. The one that's between Oregon City and Gladstone is also a McCullough bridge. So I would be happy to entertain any questions if you have any about what DOCA is doing these days. Yes, Amy?
Sorry, I missed Denise. Did you say we could order the ornaments online or we had to go to the elevator?
You can, I did say you can go to the elevator if you want to pick them up in person. Now, the courthouse isn't quite in yet, but I believe that you can order them online on the downtown Oregon City. I believe it's allthewayWrittenOut.org. They are available.
Okay,
And
thanks, yeah.
if you don't have them, they're pretty amazing. I have all 3 of them myself, and I'm looking forward to getting the courthouse. So, surprise for next year, we are looking at doing the Ermitinger House. And so I've seen the mock-up and it looks really, really neat. So anyway, thank you for your time. And I'm sure that for the next update, Liz will be back, but thank you very much for hearing our report.
Thank you, Denise. Are there any further questions?
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, our next presentation will be Housing Choices Update by Christina Robertson Gardner.
Ooh, that is me. Can everyone see my share screen? Great. So you don't get to see me on the camera, but you get to hear me, my disembodied voice. So my name is Christina Robertson Gardner, and I'm the senior planner with Oregon City, so I'm wearing my planner hat in this presentation. And I'm providing a general overview of the House Bill 2001, which is, in Oregon City, we call it the Housing Choices Code Update Project. I have about 6 or 7 slides, and then I can answer questions. So scroll down. What is House Bill 2001? Well, House Bill 2001 is called the Middle Housing Law and was passed by the Oregon legislature in 2019 as a partial solution addressing Oregon's housing shortage. The law applies to cities in the Portland urban growth boundary with populations of more than 10,000 and cities within of more than 25,000 elsewhere in the state. So Oregon City's in the UGB, and we're over 10,000, so we apply both ways. The key thing with House Bill 2001, the legislature has a very specific deadline for adoption, and that is June 30th, 2022. And how they wrote in is they provided a model code that they adopted through Oregon Revised Statutes. And if Oregon City does not provide updates through kind of our normal process, then the model code prevails as of June 30th. So we have incentive to make sure that we go through our process and adopt the code that works for us, but also meets the state requirements. So a little overview of House Bill 2001. There's kind of two main pieces of that. Large cities must allow duplexes on every lot and parcel that allows single-family detached dwellings. So the process, the review, the criteria for a single-family house and a duplex is now the same, needs to be the same in Oregon City. So if you are applying for a single-family house or applying for a duplex on your lot, you have the same criteria moving forward. And allow triplexes, quadplexes, townhomes, and cottage clusters in areas that allow single-family dwelling. They could be slightly different requirements, but they still must be allow for the use in single-family zones. So first, single-family and duplexes are now very much the same process in Oregon City, will be, and that we will be looking at adding these additional middle housing in all Oregon City residential zones. So what are some of these middle housing, and why are they called middle housing? Well, they're really the housing types that fall in between a single-family house and an apartment. And so those are cluster housing, which you'll see to your left. Those are smaller units of 4 or more that are gathered around like a common open space. Duplexes, right now in Oregon City, that's an attached unit with a building which has 2 dwelling units attached. 3 or 4 plexes where 3 or 4 units are attached. And I'll scroll down. And townhomes, where those are individual units that share a common wall. And townhomes often have their own tax lot underneath or deeded property underneath. So what does Oregon City already regulate? So today, Oregon City regulates some of these middle housing uses already in some of our zones. Oregon City went through a pretty extensive equitable housing project in 2018 and 2019. And what you see in green today are uses that we already allow in these zones. So in the Oregon City's low density residential zones, which is the R6, R8, and R10, duplexes today are allowed on corner lots. Cluster housing's allowed, and something that's not part of House Bill 2001, but we allow today, which is internal conversion. So you can take an existing house and create multiple units within the existing house. So that will remain as a use we allow. So today, what we don't allow in the lower density zones are 3 4plexes, townhomes, and duplexes on all lots. So that's something we'll be looking at, what is the right code for Oregon City and meets the state standards moving forward. In our medium residential zones, which is R3.5 and R5, all of the kind of middle housing uses that are regulated by HB 2001 are already allowed. One thing we also do in Oregon City that not every city has code for and will now be moving forward this year is we have clear and objective design standards for all of these uses. So if you have a middle housing use and you want it and it's allowed in the zone today, you can come into the building department, fill out our middle housing worksheet with our clear and objective standards, and move forward to develop that middle housing in your zone if it's allowed. So we have created those design standards that are clear and objective for middle housing as part of our equitable housing work that was done a couple of years ago. So we already meet the House Bill 2001 standards. If there's any small changes that will be made, it'll be through kind of a code audit that we'll look at this year if there's a small change we need to make. But for the most part, we are in compliance with clear and objective standards. So some of the frequently asked questions that people are asking about with House Bill 2001. What about historic districts? Oregon City has 2 large historic districts and landmarks throughout the city. And Salem gave a pretty strong direction when House Bill 2001 was adopted, which is historic districts are not exempt from this bill. That being said, Middle housing is reviewed in the same way that single-family housing is reviewed inside historic districts. So one project that will be happening as part of this is the Historic Review Board is looking to provide further direction for middle housing, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and townhomes in our 2 historic districts. And I'm actually making a presentation in their October 26th meeting, and they'll be moving forward this year to have a work project that will be updating that code language through the year. And I think they'll be looking at melding that into some of the existing compatible change work that they've been doing. So the goal is to have the refined design guidelines for middle housing adopted around the same time this code is in the spring. So if someone came in to apply for middle housing in an historic district after June 30th, even though there are design guidelines and they could review it and the board would be able to approve it, providing really good, clear direction, I think will be really helpful. The second question is geologic hazards. We have landslides in Oregon City, historic landslides, steep hillsides, and a geologic hazard overlay. Does the city have to adopt middle housing in all of these parcels? And the direction we receive from the Development of Land Conservation and Development is not necessarily. Duplexes are, because we see them now together, duplexes and single family are the same. They need to be allowed everywhere that single family is allowed. But middle housing of quadplexes, threeplexes, fourplexes, cluster homes, and townhomes could potentially be further restricted in the geologic hazard overlay district. So as we move forward with these code updates, we'll kind of understand what are we looking for? What happens if a teeny sliver of the geologic hazards on your property? What if all of it is? So these are some of the details of the code we'll be working through. People have questions about parking. So you're adding potentially new middle housing in residential districts. This House Bill 2001 indicates that cities cannot require more than 1 off-street parking space per middle housing unit. And off-street is exactly that, driveways, garages, off the parkings, off that street parking, not street parking. Those cities could elect to require less. But what cities can't do is require more than 1 off-street parking space per unit. People have asked about private covenants and restrictions, also often called CC&Rs. And there's pretty clear direction there as well. No new development can prohibit middle housing with private restrictions. So if a subdivision comes in next year, there cannot be CC&Rs added that prohibit the ability to build duplexes or quadplexes or townhomes in that development. But if there's an existing development, so if you have an existing house that you live in, check your CC&Rs, check your covenants and restrictions. Those are private agreements. And the city cannot enforce those, and they are not bound by the House Bill 2001 requirements. So, but we as a city can't actually enforce that. But if you live in a subdivision that has CC&Rs that restrict certain amount of uses, and that's a private agreement, and the homeowners association wants to pursue enforcement of that, that's something you can do. Scroll down. So how do I stay involved? You can visit the project page, which is on our website, and I'll give you this in a link after the meeting. We have a project page on the bottom right-hand side on the planning department page. On the right-hand side, you'll see a housing choices update. And that project page provides updated information, links to the House bill, links to ongoing work products will be coming out, as well as links to any surveys or future surveys. And you can also click on a link to get on the project mailing list. So that's item number 2. Sign up to be on the project email list. There will be project e-blasts that provide you update on any new surveys, products, meetings, and when we get to hearings, links to the proposed code. We'll be having at least 2 surveys as we move forward on this tight timeline. One just was released on Friday. It's a larger policy survey. There's about 4 or 5 policy questions and that link went out in a utility billing mailer. So if you've checked your utility billing yet, you'll see a pullout sheet, and that provides background of House Bill 2001 as well as a link to the survey, and you can get a link to the survey. See down here, right here in red on the main page is a link to the survey. That survey response will provide some general policy direction. we'll move forward and provide a second survey with a little bit more specific code, potential code options. And that survey will probably happen about end of November, early December. You can ask me to come to your neighborhood association meeting. I'm happy to present at any neighborhood association meeting as we move forward. So if you have one coming in the next couple months, I'm happy to do a presentation. Just email me and I can get it on my schedule. And as always, you can attend or comment during the public hearings, which are tentatively scheduled for about February through April. We're trying to provide ourselves about a 2-month buffer between, because we don't want to be running towards the end and having to get an adoption right before the deadline. So we're trying for an April adoption, knowing that we have a little bit of buffer if we need it. And I have one more page. This timeline is on the project website as well, but here's a general overview of the timeline. Where we are today is September, October 2021. Oregon City received a grant from the DLCD, the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And we have a consultant team that's been working with other cities on House Bill 2001, and they're going to help with that code audit. So they're going to look through our code, look through the House bill, look through the work we've done through equitable housing, identify where we need to make changes to be compliant. Public outreach, really right now we're starting the first phase of public outreach, October 2021. We hope to have proposed code. I hope to have it in November. It's looking probably more like early December. My grant was about 3 or 4 weeks late for finalizing, so I've had to push this timeline a little bit. We will be checking back with the City Commission at a work session, either in December and January, provide them an update. And as you move, we'll move forward with the legislative packet, which is the proposed code amendments. One other item that the City Commission will be doing in their work session in either December or January is start that first conversation of, so we created code to remove that barrier to how middle housing, but just because you zone for something doesn't mean it's going to be built. So that's step one, right, is zoning, remove the barriers. But step two are what are the incentives, what are the ways that the city can help bring these middle housing units into reality. So there's a project the city will be required to be working on the next couple of years. It's called a housing production strategy. But a baby step that is required as part of House Bill 2001 is to start the conversation and looking at some of the tools that cities can use to increase middle housing, so not big apartments and not single family in Oregon City. And so we will have that kind of beginning discussion of what are the tools in our toolbox besides zoning. And that'll happen in either December or January of next year. And why are we doing all of this? We are doing all of this because Oregon and Oregon City has a housing crisis. We have a problem with people being able to find living situations for all types of their life. So Oregon City is really good. We have a lot of single family homes, and that works if a single family home fits your lifestyle. As you age out of place, or children that come in that don't want to live with their parents anymore but want to stay in Oregon City, new people coming in, maybe small families, families of 1 or 2 people. There's not a lot of options in Oregon City. And so we're looking at what can we do to provide more opportunities for more different, even though it's bad grammar, more different housing than we have today. So that is really the goal that started with the state legislature, but really is being embraced by Oregon City of how can we kind of reduce the barriers of allowing some of these housing types that were built 50 years ago. We see them in our neighborhood right here in McLaughlin, but we're zoned out and not allowed for the last couple decades. So that is the goal of House Bill 2001, and really my job as staff is to look at what was required by the bill, what's in our code, and then when there's some options, work with our community, our city commission on the best code that meets the needs for Oregon City, but also is compliant with the law. So I'm available if you have any questions. Sure.
This is Amy, for those of you on there. Just question, can you go over again, what is the difference between a 3 or 4-plex and a townhome?
Yeah, I'm gonna zoom back up here. And one of the questions actually in the survey actually gets to some of those questions. So right now in Oregon City, our definition of a duplex is 2 attached units on 1 lot. A threeplex is 3 attached units or 4 attached units. So those could be done vertically on top of each other or horizontally, I guess, depends on, but they can be next to each other or on top of each other. But right now they're all attached in one building. So one of the options that we could look at as a city, we don't have to, would we want to allow any of these to be detached? Would we be okay having 3 separate buildings on one tax lot? So in a sense, it's still a triplex, but doesn't necessarily have to be attached. So that's one of the questions that's coming out in the survey. They would still, you couldn't divide them and sell them off as separate homes, but you could potentially, it's still 3 units on one lot. So that's one option we could do to change our code in Oregon City. What a townhome is, and in our code today, and probably would stay the same, is these are, we call them single family attached, where you might have a townhome that might have 4 units in it, and underneath that are common walled units, and underneath each townhome is actually deeded property. So when you buy a townhome, you buy the land and you buy the house, and you might have like an HOA for the common wall maintenance, but it's a deed simple. You're actually buying the land underneath your townhome. Is that?
And so with a 3 or 4plex, you can buy the unit but not the land? Or
If it's a 3 or 4plex, someone could buy, so if I had a 3plex, you could either condoize it, right? But it's 3 units on one lot. So we don't really get involved in condoization, that's through the state. So it would be you could either rent it. So you could be, someone could build it for rentals. You could live in one and rent the other out, which often hearing more and more young people are doing for duplexes. You could have 3 units, but right now there is not an opportunity. You would not be able to sell off the small lots. The one thing you could do, so that's House Bill 2001. There's also another House Bill called House Bill 453, which came through Salem, and we're also gonna be looking at, which is asking, actually the question that Amy is asking is there a way to have more deed simple, smaller homes? So the answer, Amy, you might be able to sell off and have smaller lots of those. If there was a triplex, you had 3 units together, you might be able to do that through 453, and we're learning that now. And that language, I hope that we could come together and have House Bill 2001 and House Bill 453, which is called a middle housing partition language for greater understanding. I hope to have both of those ready by the spring, but we're still learning about learning from other cities too, the technicality of how you would go about allowing these further deeding of these smaller middle housing and how that relates to our partition code in Oregon City.
So you say deed simple, does that mean that they're individual tax lots though?
They'd be individual tax lots, yeah. So do we have frontage requirements? Do you have flag lots? You sometimes it's a little Pandora's box. It sounds great, and then you open the Pandora's box and go, okay, hold on, let's figure out the details. And so that I don't have the answer for today in October. Mm-hmm.
Where are we outsourcing kind of consultants in terms of what examples of, like, where are these have we figured out who we're hiring yet from what cities?
So the grant came from the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And they have about probably a 5 or 6 on-call consultant group who have been working with different cities. So they assigned us, we were fine. 3J is who is helping us with the comprehensive plan update and also helped with the equitable housing. What the city really needs right now help is just bodies. There's only me in the department. So they're helping with the code audit to look through the code. They're providing some background. They helped, start some of the background information, but this is a city-led project. They're just providing kind of extra people to help us because I can't do everything by myself. So when I say it's not a consultant-led, but they're providing some of the extra staff FTE I need to do the project.
And just out of curiosity, in terms of a geohazard, currently what we're seeing with the state is that the state isn't really enforcing anything in terms of geohazards. And so if you look at city makes a decision on how they want to address issues. If they don't want to address the geohazard issue, you can't really escalate it with the state because the state's not really enforcing anything and won't go against the city because it's the state constitution. So my question for you is, are we going to actually look at geohazards more critically? Because I don't think currently as a city we are doing that now.
Well, I think those are those are good questions, but they're two different questions. So how the city is enacting our 1744 Geologic Hazard Overlay District for development is a question, and that's a little bit separate from this. This question is, does the city want to allow any additional uses beyond single family and duplexes when property is in a geologic hazard overlay district? That's one question the city can ask. We have some flexibility. It's called Goal 7 of the Oregon Land Use Goals. We can show how we are meeting Goal 7 and we have some flexibility. One of the questions that was asked in the survey is if, and I'll just use the cube scenario, if you can build a cube in the with a single family residential unit, this amount of excavation, this height, is it okay to also build that same cube if it has 3 studios in it, but it's the same cube? So it's still a threeplex, but it's taking the same space. We don't necessarily have to. We could say no, or we could say if you can build it in the cube, you can build it in the cube, and it doesn't matter how many units are in it because the parking is part of the excavation, and there's only a certain amount of disturbance you can do in a geologic hazard. So that is one of those policy questions that are happening in the October survey. Anybody have any other questions? And I'll send this presentation out as well as a link to the project page. I really do encourage you. All of you are signed up to receive the project email updates as CIC members. If you don't want to get the CIC update, you don't want to get the project update, you can unsubscribe. But if you do, just know every couple of weeks, you'll get a project email from me providing where you are, and you can forward that on to your neighbor association or at your next meeting, just provide an update of where we are in the process and encourage people to be involved because we have some flexibility kind of within the sideboard. So I want to make sure that the most amount of people are asked and involved in how we work within our little sandbox that we're given.
I have a question. This is Denise Beasley. Where do accessory dwelling units come in on this?
That's a great question. So that's not part of House Bill 2001, but it's something we already allow today. So I don't think we anticipate changing any of the accessory dwelling units, which are allowed by right if you meet the requirements for every single family residential zone. So this is kind of things above that, beyond that. That's a great question. All right. I will. So that is all. Oops, sorry. There we go. And I'm going to put up Patty's press. Patty, I have a PDF, so I think this is one of those where I think I'm going to have to just do next screen for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Hello, everyone. I'm Patty Nelson. I'm a senior engineer in our Public Works Department. Been here a few years working on our water system. So tonight I'm here to talk about our water system and also inform everyone that we have 2 ballot measures that will be on the November ballot. Just move ahead. So I'm sure everybody knows, but we're the oldest city west of the Mississippi. And believe it or not, at least I was surprised when I came here that we still have water pipes that are over 100 years old. And clearly those are past their life. So we have part of our program is to maintain the system. The costs increase over time. Water Master Plan, which we recently amended in January of 21, identifies projects that are needed for the water system. There's $81 million worth of projects, and those are focused on maintaining the water system as well as improving its ability to recover from wildfires, major storms, and droughts, and also provide water for everybody for years to come. This last few years were a clear reminder of how important our water system is. The wildfires swept through Oregon City on Labor Day in 2020, and it was unclear if we would have enough water to combat the water threat. And also in February 21, I'm sure everybody remembers that time, we lost power, as did many people, but what it meant to the water system is our water supply was actually cut off for 3 days. And so I know in talking with our operations folks, we depend on our reservoirs for storing water, like the Mountain View Reservoir was down to within a couple feet. So we were very fortunate to have the water come back online. There's no disruption of service. So the city's approach is to focus and repair on and upgrade the oldest parts of the water system. I should have brought my props. I actually have some rusty pipes. And at one of the commission meetings, I brought in a piece of actual paint that's peeling from the inside of the Henrici Reservoir. And it's just examples of, why you need to maintain your system, right? Things get old. Also, we're looking at providing water service year-round for everybody in the system. And then improve the ability to fight the firefighters and the recover after storms and earthquakes. So I added this slide in here to talk about funding, just so everybody understands that the water system is funded by our water system improvements fees, which are called systems development charges. Those are one-time fees that developers pay, and that's growth paying for growth. So that's one part of it. But then another part comes from your water rates. And going to the different neighborhood associations, I think there's a lot of confusion. So I added in this little graphic off to the right showing a typical water bill. And I think people refer to this actually as a water bill. It's a utility bill. So there's a lot of charges in there. And what we're talking about, what funds our water system from the rates, are the water distribution portion. So I've highlighted that there. So everybody knows the City Commission put into place a higher development fees effective July 1st. So that portion has been increased, and as development comes in, those higher SDC fees are being paid. And now the City Commission's looking at the water distribution rates and looking to increase those to cover operation, maintenance, upgrade, repair, and replacement of the water system. So annually, our water rate increases have been held to 3% in recent years. Now the city is seeking to fund the projects by temporarily increasing water rates above the 3% charter limit and borrowing money. Next slide. On the November ballot, you'll see two proposed ballot measures. One is to borrow up to $38 million, and the second is to temporarily increase water rates above 3% annually above the city charter limits for 6 years. It's a tongue twister, but the next slide should hopefully help. So the borrowing measure, the city charter doesn't allow the city to borrow money without voter approval. So one ballot measure is purely to ask permission to borrow money for water system. As an example, that if that does pass, then we would be able to pursue low interest loans. And I put this up here, it's the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovative Act, they call it WIFI as short. It's a program that the federal government has. It's a low interest loan, it's a long-term loan, and we've actually applied for it. So we can apply for it, but we can't, if we are asked to apply for the loan itself, it's called a letter of interest. If we're asked to apply for the loan, we would need permission from the voters to actually pursue it. So right now we've submitted what's called a letter of interest. And if it doesn't pass, then we could not borrow money. And the second ballot measure is focused on the rate increase. So the city charter limit currently limits our annual increase to 3%, which the city has been using every year. What this would do would authorize us to temporarily increase the water rates up to 3% above the city charter limit for 6 years. If the proposed measure passes, the proposed borrowing measure does not pass, the rates will be adjusted up to the authorized amount. So I wanted to highlight that because the measure reads up to. So this does not set the rates. It's providing authorization up to the 3% above the charter limit. And depending on whether or not we can borrow money or not, that will impact that rate increase. If the proposed rate measure does not pass and the proposed borrowing measure passes, the city may not be able to secure a loan due to insufficient revenue to pay back the debt. So our finance and rate model showed that we would have to increase the rates above the 3% charter limit, even if we borrow money. So we've submitted that model as part of our WIFIA application, and just like borrowing any loan, they want to make sure we have enough revenue to pay it back. If proposed rate measure does not pass, sorry, the water rates will be kept at the 3% charter limit, and we simply won't be able to do as many projects. So this is just a reminder to vote November 2nd. We've also set up a webpage, OregonCityWater.org. I'd encourage everyone to go on there. We have attached the actual ballot measures, so you can look at those and some additional information. Do you have any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Patty. Does anybody have any questions or comments for her?
I'd like to clarify. So the rate increase would be an additional up to 3% of the 3% limit. So it could be an additional total of 6%.
Correct.
Okay.
For 6 years.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Appreciate that presentation. The next subject is OC 2040 update by Eleanor Kirway.
All right. Can everyone hear me okay through the mask? I'm trying a different mask to see if this is better. Can you hear me, Bob?
Why don't you remove your mask while you give the presentation?
All right. Good evening. My name is Laura Turway. I serve as the city's community development director, and I am here tonight to talk about our housing needs analysis. Do you mind sharing the screen?
Sure can.
Thank you. Earlier this evening, we were talking about housing and housing options. And the housing needs analysis, next slide, helps us determine in 20 years from now, how many housing units do we need? And do we have enough potential supply to meet that demand? So as of now, every 6 years, the city will have to do an analysis about how much housing do we have, and again, can we make that, can we accommodate that need? We're not developing property ourselves. We're just saying, is there enough land zoned for housing units so that the public, if they want to develop property, could do that to accommodate the need? And so this study, very high level. A lot of assumptions. We're just generally trying to figure out, do we have enough? The result of the study could be, you need to make the urban growth boundary bigger, or the city, sorry, you guys are also spread out. Or it could be, maybe you have enough and you're fine. Or maybe we look at policies like, are there things that we can do to encourage types of housing, or missing middle, or development downtown, or something like that. So that's what a housing needs analysis is just a snapshot in time as of when we did the study. Generally, do we think that we're on the right track, or do we need to make some adjustments? And if the numbers match, then the next question is it the right kind of housing? Is there a certain type of housing that's unmet, or are they across the board okay? So if the needs are for smaller housing types, or for affordable housing, or maybe really big houses, who knows? Do we have enough potential supply to meet that demand? Next slide. So there's lots of different types of housing. Christina kind of talked about it earlier, but I just want to acknowledge that the study looks across different types of housing. Next slide. So we hired some economists to do a housing needs analysis. As you recall, the city actually participated in a countywide housing needs analysis a couple years ago, 2019. And because we knew we were updating the comprehensive plan, we need that data before we make policy decisions on housing. And so we kind of delayed till now. So now we refreshed all of our data and looked at a lot of different things, such as projections of how construction has been going. How has it been going? How do we assume it will go in the future? How much types of housing do we have now? What's our mix of single family to multifamily or so forth? What are our incomes? So it's more of a technical analysis from that standpoint. Next slide. And so the two components, what's our need and how much land do we have? For the how much land do we have question, we did a map and we took a look at which properties are vacant or where are they mostly vacant. And there's some development, but maybe the rest can be developed into housing for residential use only. This does not look at commercial uses, it's just residential. And how is that spread throughout the city? What are those zoning designations? And that helps us get a sense of how much supply there could be. Again, city's not building it, property owners may not build it, it's just, is that potential there? And so you can see on the screen a list of acreages that are there. Next slide. Here is what we found in our analysis, is a determination of the number of units that we'll need in the next 20 years. You can see across the analysis, it has that we'll need half our units can be single family detached. That's because the state requirements for housing needs analysis say that no more than half can be single family detached. And so the rest are split through that. So you can see that there is a variety of housing uses. Also feeling pretty good that we're working on House Bill 2001 and the commission had sort of moved in advance of any House Bill 2001 to take a look at these missing middles and already allowed a lot of them today so far. Next slide. So in the next 20 years, the projections say that we're going to need about 7,435 new units. The amount of capacity that we have, we think for vacant land and partially vacant land is 7,266. You'll notice there's a small gap there, but it's a pretty small gap. For all the types of housing, we determined that we have sufficient supply of big lots and medium lots. It's really just the high density housing. There's a little bit of a gap. It's about 8 acres, about 169 units, not a whole lot. Nothing you're gonna go rush to Metro to expand a UGB about. Pretty small, things that you can address with policies or encouragement of redevelopment, because we're only talking about vacant here. So there are other tools in this toolkit to address that need. This project is really just the data part of it to figure out what the results are. What the city commission does with that is a separate thing. And obviously it acknowledges that we meet most of our requirements for Metro for types of housing that we have, which is good. The only thing is we're just a little bit short on high density housing, and it should be no surprise that there is a shortage of affordable housing, or projected to be a shortage of affordable housing. Next slide. So this project, Housing Needs Analysis, is really just that housing technical study. And we had sent out some emails and some neighborhood association maps if you want to kind of take a look at it. Amy Wilhite had given me comments. Thank you for that. Very good. So we'll take all those comments. We'll take a look at it. And then we would like to be before the Planning Commission soon. So you'll get an email later tonight, actually, inviting you to October 25th. The goal is to go through the adoption process before the end of the year. If we delay until 2022, then the goalpost changes and there's different requirements that we have to do for our analysis. And that's it for this presentation. Any questions on this one? I've got another one after this as well.
Just real quick, your affordable housing price, what is it and how did you get there?
So the determination that we don't have enough affordable housing in the next 20 years?
What is your affordable housing price? What, do you have a price that is, this is affordable housing price, it is $10, 10,000, what is the dollar amount, and how did you get there?
Love your question. We have ranges for affordability based on who the need is. So there's no one affordable housing. It does talk about, and I can send you a link to the study as well, but it basically has the spectrum of affordability. And so for example of certain types of jobs, your affordability is going to be different. In Oregon City, we have, what we don't want to do is spend more than a third of our income on housing. And when you spend more than, that's rent burdened. When you spend more than half your income on housing, that's severely rent burdened. We know that 26% of people in Oregon City spend more than half their income on housing. That's a lot. I mean, that's a struggle. And so we don't have projections of how much we need to meet in each category. We just know that we have demands across lots of categories. Traditionally, things like housing authorities try and catch that bottom tier, those hardest need. And then maybe some policies come into place to catch some of the really higher needs. So not a great answer to your question, but I have more data than you probably care, and it's all in our housing needs analysis. And so it depends which, all spectrums are needed, really. I think our average sale price is just so high, and it's unclear who's purchasing them, right? Or one could infer that as someone who's not living here because the average wage, if you're talking about average sales price and average wage, they don't line up. And also the average household may not also line up with someone who wants a really big house.
Laura, this, referring to your land capacity slide, did those figures include individual lots in the city?
Yeah, they do. And it was important to the City Commission that we provide transparency with this project about what we're doing. One thing I just want to be slightly cautious of is we're taking a 20-year snapshot. We're taking a snapshot today, guessing about development 20 years from now. And so on our project website, we do have maps for each neighborhood association, so you can kind of zoom in, but I just want to be cautious that the purpose of the study is to take a high-level snapshot. I would slightly cautious of zooming in too much and saying that lot versus that lot, but we definitely want to hear all your comments. If we said something was going to develop and it can't, or we missed something that obviously could develop, we'll want to take all those comments and go back and figure out if we need to recalibrate the model, because that will say the results. But we're not developing property. We're not saying your neighbor's developing property if you see that it's a certain color. So just be cautious with the tool. But yes, it was important that we show you what's there so that you can start to think about that.
I think Carla has her hand up, Bob, which you can't see. There we go.
So what we're looking at is the future, what, 2040, right?
Yep.
So have we entertained the idea, because I have a lot of millennials in my family, and, you know, their younger siblings and so forth, they're not having kids. They're not having kids at all from what I've seen. And what I'm concerned about, have we entertained the idea that possibly, I mean, we're entertaining that we need more units and maybe smaller units, but have we entertained the idea that maybe long-term we won't need all the housing that we suspect we need?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's one of the reasons why we do it, why the state's requiring us to do it every 6 years. We'll project out way further than in 6 years, and it's a guess. And so then we'll have time to calibrate that. I would say that one of the largest drivers in this of the projected new units is some of those millennials kind of coming up and looking for more affordable housing units. So we definitely could see that trend, as well as a couple other trends happening in this. And then we'll come back and we'll recalibrate each time just to make sure that we're keeping track.
I would just hate to see that we just overbuild, and then we may, you know, we could potentially do that. So thank you.
Yep. And also it would be over zone, since we're not building, the results could be overbuild for certain, but it's just our tool of zoning at this point. And then I think John had a question too.
So let's say by 2040, all the housing, the amount of housing we need, we have no more land that's vacant. Does 2201 go away, or do we have other restrictions we have to go through?
John, so can you make sure your microphone is on? Can people hear John better? Why don't you try the one next to you? Oh, no. Do you want to press?
2040, it's off now.
Can people hear John on Zoom? I'm seeing head shaking.
I cannot hear him.
Laura, would you mind moving and John could take the, I just want to make sure we get everybody on microphone. John's moving to the microphone, hold on.
So if by 2040, we meet the housing standards, how many units we have to build, there is no more vacant property left, does 2001 go away? Are they put more restrictions on us to try to break down bigger lots into smaller lots because they're gonna keep forcing us to get bigger and bigger and more crowded? You know, Southern California, where I came from, that's what it became, almost became, and everything is gone, broken down, and there's no big lots in the Southern California much anymore because they made all these little units.
Well, I can, if it's all right, I can answer the House Bill 2001. You know, the legislature meets every 2 years and I guess every year in a smaller cycle. So we get political direction from your elected officials in Salem. So I don't know, but House Bill 2001 has a requirement and then we fulfill it. And then we've fulfilled House Bill 2001 and any new legislation would come at a future direction by the legislature. For the housing needs analysis, I mean, one of the big questions are, you know, Metro looks at updating the urban growth boundary every 6 years, 5 years? It changed a little bit. But one nice thing about what we've seen from this housing needs analysis is we don't really need more land to expand the urban growth boundary. And so as the next housing analysis comes on, the next one, we keep, you know, confirming those assumptions. And then we have reason not to request any additional land in the urban growth boundary. If we can show that the zoning can meet the projected need. Did that answer that at all, or is that more confusing? And I can forward it back to Laura.
That's right. Yeah, yep.
Okay, Laura, in the interest of timing here, we're gonna have to move on. Would you give us the OC 2040 update?
Sure, happy to. If you could share screen. All right, OC 2040 is our comprehensive plan update. Next slide. So it's a policy document and it tells us 20 years from now, so we'll stick with this 20-year from now theme. 20 years from now, what do we want to be like? How do we want to approach development? Think about parks and transportation and public safety and capital projects. How do we set ourselves up for the future, knowing that things will change? So we want to make sure that we plan so that we're adequately prepared and that we get the type of development, type of public improvements that we want that better serve us. So it's a really, really, really big, high-arching document. Short of the charter, I would say it's the biggest goal policy document that we have. So from that document, we'll get things like transportation master plans and codes and things like that that implement the direction. So this comprehensive plan may not sound exciting, but it's really exciting. And if you ever get frustrated about development or want to say, why are we doing this? This is the place to participate, because this is where we make policy recommendations about how we balance stream protection and trees and housing and all of the different needs that a city must do. Next slide. So vision, we have a citywide vision. So the order of operations is to create a vision for what we want the next 20 years from now, then create goals and more specific policies in our comprehensive plan. And then after the comprehensive plan, we'll take action items to implement those goals and policies. Next slide. We've done quite a bit of community engagement over more than the last year, and have a lot of great input from the community. So I want to thank everyone who's taken the time to provide their input and encourage you to keep going as we go through this process. Next slide. So the community vision was adopted by our city commission, so you can go to oc2040.com and take a look. And it splits our vision into 4 categories. Next slide. Those 4 categories, we had a summit on each of those categories. On Thursday is our last of the 4 summits. From 6 to 8 p.m., we will be meeting on Zoom to talk about protected environment. So think natural hazards, climate change, access to parks and open space. This is the time where we want to hear your comments and more specific to this particular topic. We will have, next slide. The meeting is on Zoom, and if you go to oc2040.com, you can sign up to register. If you would like to, everyone who participates during the meeting, if you send your mailing address, then you can get a $15 gift card to a local restaurant. After that, if you feel more comfortable talking in person or just want to chat about this project, the next day, Friday, I'll be available. We'll have a coffee and comp plan. So we'll have donuts and coffee from 9 to 11 a.m. at the Planning Division office, which is 695 Warner Parrott Road. After the summits wrap up, we will take some of that knowledge that we learned and form it into some online surveys. And we will be asking the community to sort of provide guidance on what we've heard before we reach those goals and policies. We will then create the goals and policies, and we will be touching back with CIC along the way. I know I'm running out of time, so I just want to encourage you to go to oc2040.com or log on to the Summit for Protected Environment on Thursday evening. Our goal is to sort of start to wrap up the project at the end of this year and then move into the adoption process in beginning of 2022. Beginning-ish of 2022. Any questions?
Where are the meetings? Where is the summit and the coffee? Where are those being held?
The summit's going to be on Zoom on Thursday. And I can have, we know we just sent a couple of emails out today, but what's that?
We have our steering committee meeting then, so I can't.
Oh, you do? Yeah, yeah, we ended up
What's the October 8th meeting? Where's that?
That is going to be at the Planning Division office from 9 to 11, and we'll go through those same questions, and we'll write down your feedback, so it will still get to the project group as well. 695 Warner Parrott Road. It's the cute little gray building at the corner of Lynn and Warner Parrott, right in front of the police station.
Any other questions for Laura?
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Laura, for your presentation. The next item on the agenda is the staff liaison updates. Christina.
Sure, give me 1 second. I'm gonna remove some of these PDFs. Okay, I have my staff report liaison online because I have a couple things and some of it is a repeat, but I wanna make sure everyone can see it on screen. Provided links to the OC 2040 Summit, as Ms. Kirway indicated. You do have to register in advance, so if you click on the OC 2040, it registers you, and then you can create an Outlook or a Google Calendar invite for yourself with all the contact information. And it sounds like there's gonna be a future survey to the general public on these topics, so look for that in the next month. That'll kind of be another opportunity, another bite to be able to have that conversation. I'm going to keep scrolling down. So Bob LaSalle mentioned the Land Use 101 Zoom meeting for neighborhood associations. Instead of kind of having a more formal presentation at a CIC commission meeting, both Bob and myself have created a Zoom meeting. I'll scroll down the dates down here, October 14th at 7 p.m. And the via Zoom is the link. So if you forget it, you can always go back. And I did send an invite if you use calendar invites. It might already be on your invite. And what this is an informal opportunity for neighborhood association members and land use committee members to talk about kind of how they set up their comments for neighborhood association land use reviews. I'll do probably about a 30-minute Land Use 101, kind of how, how the kind of type 2 administrative review through Planning Commission type 2, type 3, type 4, the different types of land use applications, where to find the notices, how to make good public comment, kind of all the things I can think about, provide a kind of a grand Land Use 101. I'd like to record that 30 minutes so then we can have that available online for future people to reference. But then I'll turn off the recording and kind of allow the next hour for just general casual conversation so you don't feel that you're in a, sometimes during these formal meetings, you don't get to have that kind of casual conversation. So that is the goal for that meeting. So you don't have to register in advance, just show up. And we will, and if we need to do breakout groups, we'll do breakout groups if that makes sense. Depends on how many people attend. So I look forward to hosting that meeting with Bob LaSalle. If you have any questions, you can always email me. Let's see, the next one. So postcards, which I know is on our agenda later this evening, but as of July, I am now your postcard staff person. So if you have, if you are in charge of creating the postcards for your neighborhood association, send your postcards directly to me at crobertson@orcity.org. And I will review them. I've been doing them within 24 hours of getting the email. And I will send them to Dave Buell at Buell's Impressions with a link to the mailing labels. And so far that has, since July 1, that's worked well. I have about 4 or 5 neighborhoods that have done the postcards and able to give the 24-hour turnaround. What I can't control and what Dave, Buell's Impression can't control is the third-party mailer and the bulk mail. That gets dropped off at the post office, and because it's bulk mail, they choose. They have a large kind of timeline that they can choose what day they want to mail it. They may not mail it, all of it in one day. They may mail a little bit over time. That's why you might get them on different days. So for example, for Berkeley Hills, I put on the screen, Berkeley Hills sent me an email on Sunday the 15th. I sent it to Buell's on the 16th. Buell's printed it, sent it to the third-party mailer, and they dropped it off on the 24th for the September 14th meeting. It sounds like Carla mentioned, even past Labor Day, they still hadn't gotten the postcards. Yeah, so.
I haven't gotten the postcard. Dee Dee didn't get the postcard.
Yeah.
And some people near homes, and Maggie, they did get this last postcard, but I didn't ever. I've gotten literally probably 2 postcards this entire year.
Yeah.
And then I was missing one, maybe got one around November 2020, and that's it.
So that's how today's, and we'll talk about, but that's how we do today. So I wanted to give you these dates so you know. This is based on a bulk mailing rate with a third-party bulk mailing party. So as we move forward, I just want to understand the front end is actually happening pretty quickly. It's the back end that's taking too long or perceived too long. The other thing I added, my name to every single neighborhood association postcard, so I'm going to get them too. And so I can see which ones I haven't gotten and which ones I have, so I can also help you track that as well. So I'm your neighborhood association postcard person, so please send them directly to me. Within 24 hours, I promise I'll get them to Buell's. So if you have any questions, let me know. As always, Trail News Monthly Trail News Monthly e-newsletter. So we have our quarterly printed Trail News, but now we also have a monthly Trail News. It's an e-newsletter. I highly recommend, if you're a neighborhood association contact, subscribe to that. You'll get the up-to-date information for what's happening in the city each month. That kind of spills in the gap between the printed version of the trail news. And feel free to forward that on to your neighborhood association contacts as well, or have them subscribe. So I'll just keep scrolling down. I generally keep this on every time, but how do I learn about development applications in the city? As always, you can click on the developments tab on the bottom of the city website. You can subscribe to the weekly land use notice list. I've actually had 2 questions from Amy already. So if there is a question or discrepancy or something, call me and I'll try to track down the solution. We had one that was in the wrong neighborhood, but there was no reason why it was in the wrong neighborhood, but we kind of found a back end glitch and we fixed it. So thank you, Amy, for calling on that. And then we have a public records request process. So if you are meeting with a developer or they want to have a neighborhood meeting, you can request a copy of the pre-application conference notes. You just have to click on the public records request link and request. Oh, someone needs to. Sorry. Okay. Send your public records request and we'll get you a copy of the pre-application notes. And if you have a specific question about the notes, you can see the planner or the engineer that was on the meeting. Feel free to call them directly. So like, I was reading the notes, I'm confused about this, and they can talk to you about the notes.
How long after the meeting should we wait to ask for the notes?
Well, we do draft notes at the meeting. We usually get them probably final notes within a week if we have to collect. If some new information came out and we had to coordinate, like I sometimes have to coordinate with development services and it takes a couple days to get the final notes out, but we'll get you the final notes within the week, unless there's something really odd and the planner will let you know about that.
I have a question. Back to the postcard, some of us have an overage. Is there funds to cover this? Or do we ask permission for our next postcards, or how do we?
Sure. And I sent you and I apologize, I thought I uploaded it and I did not. So I sent you an email today with the October latest update of the postcard budget. And it's based on the city commission's overall budget allocation and then separated out by population. And I use this year's population that came out of this year's mailing labels. Right now, if you want to do more postcards in your neighborhood budget allows, it's a larger conversation with the CIC. And if there is an active neighborhood association budget that's kind of not being used, the CIC can vote to allow to allocate additional money if needed. That has been the process previously. Is that the question?
Yeah, so we should be doing that now.
Well, you should be fine because you only have one postcard. You look.
We're showing, for Kenema, we're showing, I think that we're 80,000
No,
over, if I read it right.
No, you had $80 for the last one. If you go to the bottom, you'll see what's left. So you have like $200 and something.
Oh, left, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So the bottom of the spreadsheet shows what each neighborhood has left so far this fiscal year, starting July 1. Well, City Commission gave it to you. I didn't give it to you. I just track it. So that's all I have for liaison reports. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm gonna stop share.
Have we entertained increasing my neighborhood is so big that I'm going to go over every single year. Is there any entertaining the idea of increasing that budget to a degree so that at least we can get out a postcard every other month per complete year?
Sure, and that's a request for the City Commission at the next budget. Yep. They control the budget for the postcards when they approve the budget.
And I'm also putting together some data in regard to how much each of these mailings cost. Obviously, they're costing more than what we're being allocated. So I'll work with Christina on the presentation to the City Commission for more money.
I can share the agenda screen again. Let's see.
Okay,
There we go.
let's see. The next item is general business. We have, in the Park Place Neighborhood Association, come to a point where we're having trouble storing all the information, historic information. And I imagine some of the other neighborhoods are having the same problem. There is supposed to be a room in the bottom of the police station up at, across from the library, devoted to the CIC. I'm not sure, I don't think anybody's been able to find the code to that lock yet.
You're looking at the person who knows the
Have you
code
heard
to the
anybody
lock.
find it?
Would you like me to elaborate on that, Chair LaSalle?
Yes. Go
So
ahead.
yes,
Thank you.
according to what Laura Torrey told you earlier, there is an office for, not for the CIC, it is for the neighborhood associations. At one time, all of the neighborhood association chairs had the code. William probably may still remember what the code is. But anyway, so if you need to get into that office, I will be happy to share the code with you. I will not give it out over, because we don't want just anybody going in there, but there are file drawers in there. I think I organized some of the old stuff from some of the neighborhoods that don't exist anymore and put them in their file drawers. I apologize. It was my job this last summer to vacuum it, and I haven't done it yet because I'm waiting for bad weather so I can do work indoors. But Steve, give me a call. I'll give you the code. You can go over and I'll give you the tour of where your stuff goes and you can offload it there.
Denise, last time I was there, the
Yeah, you and I were
McLaughlin,
there.
the McLaughlin neighborhood was storing a lot of stuff there and,
Yeah,
has that changed?
there was permission granted many years ago by the CIC for the McLaughlin neighborhood to store the snow cone machine because it's one of those things where you had to take it in through the elevator to get it to go anywhere. Well, let's just say I couldn't lift it up myself, neither could anybody else. But all the file drawers are accessible.
They are now, okay.
Yeah,
They
no,
were
no, they
cut-
still are. They're not, the machine is not in front of the file drawers.
No, it wasn't the machine. There were signs and canopies and the,
Yeah, those are, things are moved out of the way right now because I'm getting ready to vacuum it. So it has nothing to do with city commission. This is just something that I volunteered to do and I've done for like the last 10 years.
We appreciate
So when you open the door, stuff just comes in and we can't keep it from coming in there. So I just vacuum it. So Steve, give me a call. And if anybody else has any other stuff, let me know.
I think we need to be aware that there's, from past experience, there may be a risk of that room flooding down there. I hope they've permanently solved that problem.
Bob, it looks like Karen, Karen, looks like Karen has her hand up.
I just wanted to qualify or clarify what I think I was hearing. There was a reference to the police department. For those who aren't old timers, we are talking about the John Adams Fire Station, correct?
Yes, not at the police department.
The one across the street from the library.
Yes, okay. That was the police department even before I worked there, and we won't talk about how many years that was. I just wanted to clarify the location.
Okay, I have listed here a committee to investigate the postcard routing and timelines. The reason I put that in here is over a period of time, several of the neighborhood associations have not got their mailings out in a timely manner. Their postcards have arrived after the meetings have been held. I'm just interested if somebody is interested in forming a committee to, I guess, whatever it takes to find out where the problem lies. Christina gave us a pretty good timeline there. If that's followed, then it looks to me, well, I have a question about the third party you mentioned, but also it looks to me like everything's been mailed or sent or taken to the post office, and maybe that's where the problem lies, and I don't have any idea what we would do about improving the
Can I offer some options maybe to talk about for some other ways of looking at postcards if people are interested? So one thing that,
Open to any ideas anybody has to make
One-
sure it happens.
I've been thinking like, well, we do this one thing, right? We don't have to always do this one thing. It's one of those where we've always done it, so this is how we do it. One thing that the CIC could look at is we have a finite budget. The city commission gives the budget, so I can't find more money right now, but do you want to allow neighborhood associations to use first-class mailing to do it more quickly if they have a more timely meeting, and maybe it costs more and maybe they send less postcards, but maybe that's an option that they have in their arsenal if things needing to be really time sensitive are there. So that's one option the CIC could look at is, with the budget, is it okay if neighborhoods kind of spend their postcard money really in a sense first class or third party? So that's something, because you can work directly with Buell's and they will send it first class. So that's one option. Another option is, does the city want to go out for another bid to see if there are other scenarios that, or another entity that maybe has a more compelling timeline or price? So that's an option. Does the city want to go out for another request for services to see what else is out there? I think those are the first. Oh, the other one is, if I think McLaughlin's the only 501c3, but if neighborhoods want to, they could potentially, you're not? Okay. Okay, one option was maybe you get the money up front through an intergovernmental agreement, but I think you have to be an actual nonprofit to do that. Maybe there's a grant opportunity where you could do upfront. If you're not a nonprofit, the city might be able to do a grant where we get you the money all up front, but you have reporting in the back end. So there's some other ways maybe that we can get the money to the neighborhood association. So those are all ones that I thought of, but I'll stop talking if people have any other ideas.
What if we deliver them?
Oh, you
Then
could,
you have your hand up.
oh, here. I think,
Yeah, sorry. Honestly, we either need the funds for first class, which now means you might get it within 5 days after it reaches the post office, but good luck as the post office changes their rules. Bulk mail has always been bottom of the heap once you deliver it to the post office. It's up to them when they choose to deliver it. And unfortunately, most of us can't come up with our agendas 2 months ahead of time, so the post office gets it out to people. I think depending more on electronic and maybe not every month doing a postcard and relying on it, trying to get email lists, people to sign up, getting people to follow your Facebook page. The postcards are we use them maybe 4 times a year normally, just to remind people that we're here and let new people know, but we don't rely on them for every meeting. And I talked to Dave Buell, and he said, yeah, if you really truly think it needs to be out there within a week, you're going to have to pay first class postage. Doesn't matter who your vendor is, it's the post office where you run into the problem. And turn on the nightly news, it's getting worse, folks.
Well, let's see, and we have some options. Number one would be request first-class postage. What is that now?
Here's the other option I was thinking of, if you don't mind me saying. I'm a logistics person by nature. I've had the advantage of having a U.S. postal worker, volunteering at the neighborhood association, is talking to Oregon City Postal and trying to make a contact with the management there and try to put an emphasis to them that a lot of the neighborhood associations aren't getting postcards and try to communicate with them. I realize, like Karen said, is United States Postal Service is changing and it's not going to get any better, but maybe making contact with them and letting them know what's going on.
Bob, this is Amy. As my understanding is Buell's uses Metro Presort for their bulk mailing. And so it's not going to the Oregon City Post Office. It goes to Metro Presort and they deliver it to whatever post office they use to have their bulk mailing permit at. But like Carla said, Janice has told us in the past that just because it's stamped at a certain post office, it can be taken anywhere. So I think the breakdown is it's not with Buell's. Buell's doesn't go over to Metro Presort that I'm aware of. After they're done, pick them up and take them to the post office. Metro Presort takes them to the post office themselves. So whatever post office they're taking them to, and I can tell you for sure, I've talked to the post office in the past that they took them to, because we've had them disappear. One time it was around elections, and they just flat out told me if it wasn't an elections mailer, they just threw it in the pile, and we got them in December. So one of the options might be to either ask Metro Presort to take them to a different post office, or if that's not even feasible for them, that we arrange something else that even if it's, and I don't know if it's first class, if Buell's still going to send them to Metro Presort and still send them to that main, Portland post office, but it would be nicer if we could get them back to either Oregon City or Gladstone or, Beaver Creek or something smaller to handle getting them out. But it's Metro Presort where the breakdown is.
What does Metro Presort do?
They're the ones that print the labels, the mailing information onto so Buell's prints the blank postcard that has what we send them, and then they send it to Metro Presort, who puts on the mailing information and the barcode and the bulk mailing stamp, and then they take the postcards and take them to the post office. So all Buell's is printing is what we've sent them.
But guys, at that point, they go to the regional sorting center. It doesn't matter which post office you drop them off at. They're still going to regional sorting and then going out to the appropriate post offices, which hopefully are all ours. But if you dropped them off in Oregon City, they don't stay here. They still have to go through processing.
That's a different piece, that's different information than we were given by the post office themselves.
Bob?
Yes.
Can it be attached to the website? It would encourage people to use the website, and it could be updated almost, on a weekly basis, if possible. I mean, has that been investigated?
Sometime back, we've kind of had a poll about what the most effective ways of getting information to the neighbors was, and the postcard seemed well in the majority of the best way to contact people, but
In Barclay Hills, we have a lot of older.
We try to contact everybody, every means we have. We have a big email list, and of course.
That just don't use internet. Some of them don't use phones, and it's their only means to get notification.
Yes, I agree. There are a lot of people out there in every neighborhood like that, so. So going back to my original question, or I guess desire, is I'd like to have two or three people volunteer to look more deeply into this as far as the postage rates, the different kinds of mailings that we could do, taking it to different post offices, becoming the Metro Presort more efficient or whatever. I could name a lot of things here, but that would be the job of the committee. So would anybody be interested in taking part in that?
I would. My name's Carla.
Carla? Anybody else?
Bob, this is Linda Basinger. I have just another thought about doing this. Postcards work. What about A-frame boards? These would be A-frames that everyone would have. This is my association, and having like a whiteboard so that we could change the address, or the address of where we're meeting even, or perhaps the date of where the meeting's at, and put those out in different places. It depends on how big the neighborhoods are, how many signs you would need to go. Kenema used those when we had an ice cream social, and they were very effective. We've just put out little A-frame signs and real quick little scratched on, and that worked very well. Another idea.
Linda, I have been told in years past that A-frame signs are eligible under the postcard budget, so if that's something, I mean, you're still balancing up
doing
your
it, but
your
yeah,
postcard
they could
budget
do
money,
that.
but in lieu of maybe not doing a postcard 1 month or 2 months, you could spend that money on that, so I'm happy to work individually with you
That's
on
good
that.
to know.
And Gaffney Lane did that and ours got stolen, so, because A-frames are the popular sign right now, that's what's allowed. And so ours were constantly being stolen, so. Good luck, you must have better
Barclays
neighbors.
used signs,
Well, I don't know if we have better neighbors,
the,
but,
lawn
it works
signs,
very well.
like politicians use. We've had several of those.
We have those.
That just say there's a Park Place Neighborhood Association meeting next Monday at such and such, so we wouldn't have to have specific dates on it, and those help a lot too.
We have those in Barclay Hills. The issue I have is everywhere that we could put them to where people would see them, it would technically be in the domain of Public Works, and they could be removed and taken, and they would be considered a nuisance. And then you also need volunteers willing to pick them up and take them back. So it is an option, it's just pretty tricky, and we invested in signs. And then there's also wear and tear. You know, I already have my Velcro wearing out. So, yeah, but I mean, the thing that would be great is putting it in certain spots that doesn't distract someone in traffic, yet not getting taken by Public Works.
Well, if it's on somebody's, private property, they can't take it.
You have to ask for permission. Maybe have those people
Okay, I've
designated
got Carla,
on such
the
and
only
such a time
person
to
who
put
wants
sign
to,
here. I don't know.
seem to volunteer for this. Anybody else? Okay, well, I think it's, a little more than we should put on one person, so I guess I'll table that until we get further interest in it.
Bob, John Keyes said he'd be willing to do it as well.
Oh, John? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, John. Need one more person. Come on, somebody. Okay, well, if somebody comes up, would like to take part in that, so far we've got Carla and John. I'd like to get one other person. I'll wait a few days if somebody contacts me, otherwise I'll work with Carla and John on that issue. Okay, let's see here. I guess that's it. We need to do the roundtable now, so let's start with Speak of the Devil. Carla Laws with Barclay Hills.
Hi. We have been having, nothing new too much. We have a steering next week. We've had a lot of land use coming our way, it sounds like, and coming up in R2 zoning. So that's been taking up a lot of time. We've also been entertaining, we have a side committee that's looking at, historically, when I became Barclay Hills neighborhood chair, is looking at what Barclay Hills really was. And originally, we were not Barclay Hills. We were named by a developer and also, ex-politics in the 80s. And our actual name was historically Elyville. And a lot of the residents, when I became Barclay Hills neighborhood chair, wanted to entertain to have that name back. Elyville was originally a location, a geographical name before it was even part of Oregon City. And it was named after the Ely brothers. And, like Barclay Hills Drive was Duane Street. And technically the Ely brothers, the Holmes family owned a lot of Barclay Hills, obviously almost all of it, and had donated land later. Ely brothers had an original post stop near what I can see on the Sanborn maps from 1900 at 808 Malala Avenue. And so we're looking at looking at that name to be back, because that's our historical name. In any case, that is pretty much an update. I wanted to ask real quick at Roundtable, are we doing elections this year? Should we plan for them for November? Because technically we should be doing an election for...
January.
Okay, January?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I know with all this COVID stuff, a lot of people are limited, so.
Yeah, the old bylaws we would have made nominations, I think, in November, but the new bylaws state we nominate and elect in January.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next would be Linda from Kenema.
Kenema had an ice cream social August 8th. It was very well received and very well attended, and the feedback has been, when are we doing another one? So it was a good, just to get out and talk with your neighbors and just be out. It was a delightful afternoon. September 16th, the CNA did have a meeting, a regular meeting. We met in the park. Got a little dark, but we had lights. We're just always still struggling for a place to meet. And I can report that 601 4th Avenue went through the HRB and has been approved for the improvements that had been done. And then Tim Ahas got approval for his house that he is building on 4th Avenue as well. So we're looking forward to having a new great neighbor in our neighborhood. And we'll be having a steering committee meeting, I think, next week, or I don't know, shortly. That's it for me. What about you, Dennis?
He's passing.
Yeah.
Good job, Linda.
Okay, next would be John Keynes from Caulfield.
We had a neighborhood meeting last Tuesday. We had Patty's presentation that we heard tonight, so a repetition, but I know it's an important issue that we have to look at as a city. We also had representatives from the Willamette Falls Hospital. What's going on there, how they're growing. They've got a building project going now. They went a lot of cancer treatment center. They're putting a big facility there. They are adding some pediatric stuff and some other doctors. Any future growth would have to be somewhere else because they have no more land. So if they do any more growth, it'd be part of the property, it'd be part of the whole facility. But they're the new guy representing the hospital doing stuff, and they're working away, trying to take care of all the needs because we are growing as a city. Obviously, we're growing a whole lot as a city, so hospital and doctors need to be very important to us. And that was about it.
I have to interject at this point in time that I'll give kudos to the Oregon City Hospital. I've spent 2 of the last 3 weeks there, and they did a mighty fine job. So that's for them. Next would be Amy Wilhite with Gaffney Lane.
Thanks, Bob. So we have a steering committee meeting Wednesday night, and we will be discussing if we're going to have our November meeting. And I'm sitting on the committee to help rename Filbert Run Park. So just a shout out reminding everybody they have till the 8th to fill out the SurveyMonkey if they have suggestions for renaming the park. That's been a great committee, getting a lot done. It's been a joy to work with them. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Amy. Hillendale, Sarah Peterson.
Hi. As you recall, we're still trying to get our footing, and we're working with Tower Vista jointly for our meetings, and we're having a community meeting tomorrow night. It's going to be via Zoom, and we've got, PD and fire department coming, Public Works is going to be presenting also. So looking forward to seeing how that goes and how many people come, and, we're still trying to get going. But I will say that my postcard got to me just fine. I don't really know if they all went out fine, but it made it to me in good shape and in a timely manner. So just feedback there. But I'll have more to say next month.
Hey, thank you, Sarah, and I especially thank you for your efforts trying to get the neighborhood associations up and going again. It's very commendable and appreciated.
Thank you.
McLaughlin, Denise.
Hi, Bob. So we had Kelly Reed came and talked to us about the Compatible Change Project, and revisions for definitions of new construction. The main gist of it is 30% limit in increased square footage and a 25-foot limit in height for new building in the historic area of our neighborhood. We had an approval for solar panels at 815 and Monroe. And the neighbors around the Father's Heart worked together, and their request for a temporary shelter was denied pending further information. The Father's Heart wants to work with the neighborhood association to develop an actual good neighbor policy. And that was actually one of our goals for the year. And lastly, Waterboard Park Master Plan. We're going to encourage brainstorming with our neighbors to come up with ideas for what we want to see happen there. And then when we can meet in person, we would like to host a community engagement event. And we have a steering committee meeting this week. That's it.
Thank you, Denise. The next one would be Steve Van Haverbeek for Park Place.
Well, I wasn't able to make the last meeting. I'm hoping Bob was, but we have a meeting coming up on October 18th via Zoom, the general meeting. But we've had a disruption in our organization. Our chair resigned and somehow took with him the email, the Park Place email address. So, did you chair the meeting, Bob?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I don't have anything to report really. We just had normal neighborhood stuff, but Park Place is becoming very, very active again in land use with the proposed developments, 2 huge areas of development. So we're trying to stay on top of that. The next would be Karen Morey with Rivercrest.
We're finally going to meet. We have a request from Gardner Middle School for a lighted monument sign and an update from Public Works. Thank you to Christina. Yes, quick work on approving the postcard, and I'd given Jules heads up. And reminding me that William had made us an offer. So this afternoon, I got connected to the email address he set up and set the meeting up through the Zoom that she's making available to us. Now I go to Zoom school tomorrow because I haven't actually had to run my own Zoom meeting. So we'll see how well this goes, because I know our senior members aren't going to be attracted, but hopefully with the postcard, Facebook and some other ways, we'll be able to communicate to people and get some new participants who we haven't seen or heard from in a year and a half. And I want to clarify one thing. Amy's comment about Filbert Run, we are naming Filbert Run. We are not renaming it. Filbert Run was a placekeeper. It was never intended as a name. That's my prac hat. So this is a naming committee. And from the earlier comments, the chair of a committee can hand the gavel to somebody else if the chair wants to make a motion. The chair stays at the dais, but steps away as the chair in order to make a motion and hopes that person gives them back the gavel. We had a bad example set by the city commission. You cannot step away from the dais and decide you are a citizen. In effect, you have resigned. And I was frustrated that this is now the second time I've heard that happen in a meeting. If you follow Robert's Rules of Order, you make motions and you participate in discussion from the dais. If you step away to become a citizen, in effect, you just resign from the committee. So this is a pattern I hope we don't see repeated through other committees and future commission meetings. Parliamentarian and me got really frustrated. And that's it.
Commissioner Markle, do you have anything to say?
Thank you, Chair LaSalle. I have a few things. First, we held 2 joint work sessions with the City of West Lynn last week to focus on transportation issues. And it was basically ODOT telling us what they were going to do without what we wanted them to do. But they specifically related to tolling. And then we also talked about the other big one, which is the proposed bike ped bridge connecting the 2 cities. And so those are both in very preliminary spaces right now, and I will keep you updated about those. Regarding 2 letters that were sent by the CIC a few months ago, I have some updates on that. So the first is the Cove mitigation funding. We are talking with a group called Restore Cap about how we're going to move forward with that. But the issue with the Cove is that we want it to be more of a public space where people can swim and kayak and whatnot. And it looks like these mitigation funds might be harder to access if we want them to be, if we want this space to be a more publicly accessible spot. But we will be hearing from them soon. And then the other letter was about the Community Development Department. And so there will be an investigation into the director. And as it relates to the policies and procedures, I would encourage you all to continue being involved with the OC 2040 comp plan update, because that's really where we're going to get at the root of a lot of these complaints by neighborhood associations. So I would really encourage you to continue that involvement. And so I think that's the last thing from me. And if Chair LaSalle would allow, I would like to extend an opportunity for Commissioner McGriff to make a few words as well, if that is the pleasure of the chair.
Well, it should be the whole
Yes,
committee.
please go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair LaSalle and Commission members. I should have brought my, actually, I'll bring it up here since I'm actually speaking, not from DOTA, speaking to you as a city commissioner. Last week's Oregon City News, I submitted a letter to the editor, and it was published in this last week's issue. I made a request to the public to get back to me about an issue that is near and dear to my heart. And to date, verbally and by phone, I've received one comment back from one of your CIC members. My article was titled, Oregon City Must Help Citizens Get Involved in Planning Process. For those of you that know me and know the work that I've been involved in with the city over the last years, many years, I strongly believe in the citizen involvement process. I strongly believe in citizen involvement. And I do want you to know that I did not willingly leave you. I decided that because I had several committee assignments and Commissioner Morrow was new, that I would ask him, would he be willing to take my committee assignment from CIC? But it's not because I wanted to give you up. It's because I voluntarily asked him if he would be willing to take it so he would have some committee assignments, but I'm still gonna come periodically to visit with you. My big concern is that we have a process that was initiated by the state and approved by the state citizens that has gotten technical over time. And the reason that it got technical is because there were many lawsuits over the ensuing years from 1973 to even today. There are lawsuits regarding the land use process and what it means and what this case does. And so you've all heard the Land Use Board of Appeals. Part of the issue that I see that's hard is that Oregon City, like many other jurisdictions, has done a good job to make opportunities available for people to participate. The city cannot make people participate. That's the thing. We have to make the opportunity and I'm speaking again, all the cities and counties are required to do this. Particularly Oregon City has made the opportunities available. So when people get frustrated about something that is going on in their neighborhood or in the city, or, I'll give you an example. Back when I was neighborhood chair, there was a community-wide concern about a certain development coming into the city that the city felt, or at least the community members that I spoke with, didn't really feel comfortable with. They didn't like it. We were able to coalesce as neighborhoods and basically really fight the application. They asked for a comp plan amendment and a zone change, and that's very complicated. We were lucky that one of the opponents to this particular application had the funds and the wherewithal to hire an attorney. So we were able to, through the neighborhood associations, participate with this company and their attorney to get this application overturned. But that's not the way it always works. And so what I put in this article, if you haven't seen it, not everybody gets the Oregon City News and not everybody reads it online. So I brought a copy, a hard copy, like a real copy. So those of you at home, I apologize. So my concern is, how do we make the process accessible to neighbors across the spectrum of our community? I don't have the answer to that. We already know that there are people in our community that do not use Facebook, who do not use any electronic means. So we have to think of the other way to get communication out for them. How many times have you passed a blue land use sign and maybe just drove by it and didn't look at it? It wasn't in your neighborhood, so you probably said, it doesn't really affect me. I'm one of those crazy people. I look at them when I see them. How many people in our community know how to get involved in the future of our town? So the time to get involved is what many of you have already said. It's through this 2040 process. I got asked the other day by one of our community members about a piece of property, wanted to know, had it been rezoned in 1996? Well, I happen to know for a fact, I was still working here. No, the property had been zoned, this particular zone, since about 1980. Again, how would they find that out? You can go online, you can look it up, you can ask. But sometimes people don't know the question to ask. And I think that's the hard part. They want to get something across, but they don't know how to ask it, or they don't really know. So that's where asking lots of questions on the other end helps. I guess what I'm concerned about too is, how does Oregon City keep and retain the trust in our government to help citizens participate fully without requiring everybody to be a land use expert? I mean, I spent 30 years doing that, and I still don't know everything there is to know, and I'm still learning things about our land use process that I thought I knew. Could there be a better way for us to begin to have a dialogue with people who want to develop in our community without it becoming an us against them? And some of that is inherent because these people who are coming here to develop don't totally understand our community. They want to try to understand our community. They just want to do their thing and get out. But because we live here and we care, we want to dialogue with them, and we have to help them understand that what we all want is in the best interest of our community. That's a hard conversation to have. What I'd like to ask you all is that individually or as a group, I would like to have further conversations with you, and Commissioner Morrow agrees with me on this, about how we can help facilitate getting people to support being involved. It's tough, You come home, you're working. You've got to get dinner on the table. You've got this, you've got that. You don't have time to go to, 5 or 6 different meetings. Metro has done something which I at first thought was a little interesting, but they support their community committees. I recently was on a committee with Metro, and they gave some stipends to the community members to participate in the process. Now, I know we don't have a lot of money to do that, but it's an idea. Maybe it's something we should consider. If you all are interested in increasing the budget for the CIC, which I requested at the budget process that it be increased because I know what it costs to do this, have Commissioner Morrow and I bring that up as a possible option for a budget amendment. We can do budget amendments. I don't know exactly the process, but I can talk to Matt Zook about that. We are willing to champion that for you. I agree that it needs to be increased. Maybe it does need to go to first class. But the way the post office works, as you aptly said, Amy, everything goes to Portland. That's where it gets processed. So when I was in charge of our newsletter, I would drive, not everybody can do that. I would drive them into the main post office because I knew that that's where it was going to get processed, and then I knew it was coming back to Oregon City. So it goes from Oregon City to Portland and then back. But that's the way they're doing it. So let's talk. I've made some offers to a couple of neighborhood associations to sit down with them to talk about process. Some of you participated in my land use class that I had about 4 years ago. We had a great time. We learned a lot. We had a lot of conversation. If there's a way for me to help you do that again, I'm willing to take the time to do it because it's important to me and it's important to you and it's important to our community. So that is all I wanted to say. Thank you for letting me speak. Like I said, citizen involvement is near and dear to my heart. I still believe in it very strongly, and people can make a difference in their community. I strongly believe that. So thank you.
Thank you, Denise, and we certainly appreciate your support of the CIC over the years. Does anybody have anything else for the committee this evening? Seeing and hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
All right. That was very, well, goodbye to you too.